It's Thursday, May 21st. You're watching the live show from Travel Massive, the community's response to the COVID-19 crisis as it affects the travel industry. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the 12th time we've come together every week since March 6th. It was when we were due to go on stage just after ITB at our own Travel Massive Forum. We brought everybody together for some chat to talk about the shock that hit us. And every week we've spoken about something different as it affects the travel industry, whether it's been aviation or hospitality, how the world is looking from the perspective of people in South Africa. And today we're bringing together four great speakers to talk about their perspective on what the lockdown and what the impact of COVID-19 has been like for New Yorkers. My special guests today are John Matson, formerly of Voyager HQ, Jared Alster, our colleague and Travel Massive chapter leader there in New York. We've got Alex Shebar from the Culture Trip and Kelley Louise from Impact Travel Alliance. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm going to start with Alex from Culture Trip, if you're ready to jump on. Alex, I need you in a couple of words because I struggled with this backstage and I know you were laughing at me. Can you please give me 2 words on what Culture Trip is?
Absolutely. Culture Trip is a travel, media, and entertainment website. We are trying to give you local content for when you travel so you can experience it like a local. We don't want you to feel like you're wasting your time or your money. We want you to have great stories, share, and really experience everything a local place has to offer, because literally every single place around the world is different, and we want you to feel that difference because it's important when you travel.
You know, when you think of your typical travel website, it seems to, you know, as a consumer, you can feel the funnel closing in around you. It's like, hey, I'm at step 1. Okay, I'm being drawn into a cart, and you keep going on. So it sounds like you guys kind of worked out the content side of the business before you worked out the transaction side of the business. Is that about right?
Absolutely. And that was really important to us. We have a network of content creators who live in these cities. So when you're reading about Detroit or Istanbul or any place around the world, it's because we have people who are in those cities living about it and writing about it and experience everything there has to offer. So that's number 1, is can we create the most local, culturally relevant content that you're going to read and go, you know what, I didn't know any of this. I absolutely recommend, if you love a city, check out what Culture Trip has to say about it. I guarantee you'll discover new things you had no idea were there.
Alex, I know that teams, especially in travel, especially in technology, sometimes you can be working on new product for forever. You guys, you've been working on it. I assume this wasn't a fleeting decision or a quick product to turn around, but you guys have kind of gone towards more a transactional, or you've brought out new transactional features. You're a little bit more OTA.
We absolutely are.
Way now.
Yes.
You picked the worst time in the world to launch an OTA feature, right? I mean, what were you doing?
I can't disagree with that. That being said, the content that we have on our OTA is still wonderful. You'll still find amazing local places to stay. You'll find great experiences that we have now pivoted towards virtual. And even then, you'll find stuff on the Culture website you won't find elsewhere. And that's because people are still looking for amazing things to do, even if they can't leave their house. And whether that's they want to do stuff right now virtually, or they want to make this bucket list of when I can travel, I want to do things, we want to give them that content. And in fact, we have seen an incredible uptick on our social media of this kind of bucket list dream travel kind of experiences, because people really do want to get out there. They are stuck on their couch, they're stuck inside, but their head is elsewhere. And we're still very happy and very proud to be giving the content that allows them to do that.
So the stats are healthier. They're not, you didn't spend the month of February, March, and April managing cancellations and the fallout that transactional businesses would have been.
No, it hasn't been that. You know, again, our OTA is very new. It is something we're very proud of, and we are going to become, I think, a leader in this in times to come when people can actually do these experiences. But no, it wasn't anything like that. It was more trying to figure out what people are interested in now that they can't actually go to these locations and giving them the content they still want to be reading. And we've been doing a really good job at that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Culture Trip in just a minute, but this is our New York show. Okay. This is our New York show. I have to talk a little bit about how you're in Brooklyn, right?
I'm in Brooklyn. Yep. In Crown Heights.
That's the trendier part of New York for everybody. It's the bit that's not on Manhattan with, you know, all the Central Park, and for geography, it's closer to the airport as far as I could gather. But what is the?
I'll give you a little tip though. Anybody who's outside of Manhattan thinks that they're in the trendier part of New York.
So what's that doing for property? Anyway, I won't go there.
Yeah, right.
What's how's the Brooklyn lockdown been? I mean, what do you miss?
Oh, everything. I mean, nobody lives in New York to not do New York things. We all move here for the New York experience, and now none of us are having the New York experience. So, what do I miss? The answer is everything.
Hang on. When was the last time you had a good argument? I would miss that.
I mean, I live with my wife. So, no, I'm not making that joke. My wife and I actually have been getting together. This has been a really good test of relationships, and we've actually been really good. So that's been a nice revelation of this whole thing. No. New York is wonderful, and you're just missing everything. You're missing the people, the experiences, the food. I'm literally having dreams about eating at restaurants, which is a new one for me. So that's how
you're
far
not one of
in my
these lockdown chefs. You haven't been swatting up on Iron Chef or Master Chef or whatever. You haven't been fussing about what type of yeast you're using for your bread.
No, I have been trying virtual cooking experiences though, which have been really fun. It just shows me though that I am
eating is virtual as well. Are you following along when you're on these virtual things?
Yeah, you follow along. You get all the ingredients and then you make the thing. It just shows me that I am not a chef, and I do need amazing restaurants.
Look, I think you're spoiled for choice in New York. It's probably one of the. You could turn it into, when I travel, it's for me. It's food. If I'm doing a tour of Italy, look, I'm fine in Parma. Leave me here. I'll die here. I'll never move away from it. Like
die happy.
But there's just it's such a food culture. I mean, has it been a lot of Grubhub for you guys just domestically? Have you been calling in for food? Have you been going out to local takeout? What's that been like?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of delivery. A lot of restaurants have sadly either closed or really had to adapt. There are places like Peter Luger's who, had that 0-star review a little while ago, but people still really love it. They are delivering for the first time in 30 years.
Wow.
Restaurants have had to adapt. There's a pizza place in my neighborhood that I love that is now selling make-your-own pizza sort of boxes. So they give you all the ingredients you need to make their pizza in your own oven, which I thought was really fun. So, New Yorkers are resilient and adaptive. It's not been great for everyone. I'm not going to say this is a good thing, because of course this is an awful thing, and businesses have been shuttering again and again, and it is heartbreaking to watch this. I mean, there's a place here called Gem Spa, which is it was the heart and soul of a neighborhood in New York, and it's been around forever, and it just shuttered. It shuttered permanently. The signs came down. It was heartbreaking. So, some restaurants are doing really unique things. Some are just closing, and New York will not be the same after this is all done, which is it is what it is, but
so
sad.
Where are New Yorkers now in terms of somebody got busy in the Irish government and came up with a table, and there's columns and rows, and we're in 5 phases of unlocking for.
Yep. We are in phase 4.
What's it looking like for you guys? Where are you now, and what's next, and when are you normal again?
Yeah, for New York to reopen, they had 7 metrics that they actually needed to discuss, and we have hit 4 of the 7. We're still missing total hospital beds, ICU beds, and number of contact tracers, although they are hiring them like crazy, so we should get there. If we can hit all 7, New York is in a good place to reopen. And then beyond that, they have put a tiered phase of reopening with restaurants and bars in tier 3. So we're not looking for normal for a long time to come. They're going very, very slow.
But do you have this, are you able to walk around your neighborhood? Have you lost contact with the red brick? I mean, what has it been like to see the shutter? Because you don't really know what's open or closed. I don't know what's open or closed at the moment.
No, you'd have to
I'll
check
do
online.
a tour around the centre of Dublin in a year's time, and I'll see what's changed, and that's when it'll hit, I think. Have you any sense of just how many shutters have come down, Alex?
I would not be able to tell you that. It's probably a heartbreaking amount of numbers. What I can tell you is that, New Yorkers can walk around. It's not as locked down as some other cities. We are supposed to be having more pedestrian-only streets. This came down statewide. There has been kind of a battle between our governor and our mayor on what's kind of happening when it comes to New York, and that's always fun to watch 2 government officials fight over things that affect
reality TV
life.
because we can't film anything new at the moment, right? So
exactly that. City streets are going to open to pedestrians. They were supposed to happen already. When that will happen, unclear. They are taking some really good steps, like Memorial Day weekend is this weekend. Beaches are not reopening. This was something that people were worried that, hey, they were actually going to do this because obviously it's a big moment for the New York beaches. And no, they decided not going to reopen. So it's kind of a give and take situation. If something's going really well and they're being really careful, and there definitely needs to be some improvement.
Alex, I know I asked you what you missed the most, and you said everything, and I get it. For me, I'd miss the food. I love New York. I don't visit there often enough. I fly through New York more than I visit it. What's the first thing you're looking forward to when, or to being able to experience again when you can spread your wings a little bit? Like, will there be one big dining out experience or one champagne moment for you guys, as a couple there to celebrate when this is all behind you? What are you looking forward to?
You know what? I miss movie theaters, and I know that's a ridiculous thing, but New York has.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, no, they've got two incredible movie theaters. One called the Nighthawk, which is New York based, and one called the Alamo, which is actually based out of Texas, but they have a thing here. And you go to the movies, and they bring you food right to your seat. So you write an order card. This isn't
the normal velour seat you're packed in kind of thing.
This is a plush experience. This is a lovely experience of, like, they will bring you beer, they will bring you food, and you get to see this movie as kind of a communal experience. And I miss it a lot. So yeah, movie theaters. I really miss New York movie theaters. I know.
That's interesting. Because look, you're celebrating the moment together. It's not like watching Netflix in sync with somebody else.
It's not the same. It never is.
It's not the same. It's not the same. Has everybody in your family been able to get onto a Zoom call without 25 minutes of "Can you see me now"? How's that been for you, Alex?
It was a little rough in the beginning, but we're actually pretty good now. My family actually gets together once a week and plays games together over Zoom, so that's been pretty fun. I actually speak to my mom more now than I ever have. So.
Look, my fellow chapter leader here in Dublin, Mark Lenihan, got me hooked on a game that we play over streaming called Fibbage, and I just absolutely love it. All of a sudden, it's just so much fun. That's what we've been
playing. It's Jackbox games, so I feel
I would exactly never in a fit play it with the lads. Apart from the fact that we're locked down and we all have the bottle of grog open and we can play until the wee hours. And I just kind of love that. Alex, kind of just sobering it up a little bit. Like, I mean, you guys, you're naturally virtual because Culture Trip, you were saying backstage, you're based in London and Tel Aviv as well as there in New York. There's 300 of you. You're used to kind of being virtual there anyway. Has it changed? How has the company changed over the last couple of months?
Oh, I mean, everything's changed. Just thinking about travel industry as a whole has changed. Our model before this whole thing was created for the curious traveler, which we still absolutely believe in, but we have now changed it to stay safe, stay curious, because that's more important at this point. We still want you to travel, or at least think about traveling. We still want you to do everything that you would do before, but you have to do it safely, respectfully. And if that means staying inside and quarantining yourself and not traveling, yes, you must do that. If that means exploring your neighborhood more in a safe and respectful kind of way, do that. It means thinking about, how do I actually live in this new world and still get, this travel lust out of me, but do it in a way that absolutely does not affect more people, infect more people, and hurt anyone else. That's what it comes down to. So yeah, we're all about stay safe, stay curious at this point. And that has affected the company across the board. It has to.
Look, it sounds like you guys have some pretty charismatic leadership from the basic research I've done. I mean, how has product and how has, internal work changed over the last couple of months? Because you just launched the new OTA feature, like we were laughing at the beginning, at the possibly the worst time.
Possibly the worst
Are you still working on that now? Or are you onto new projects for post-lockdown? Or what are you guys up to?
You know what? Of course we're working on this, because this is still a major element of our site. We have constantly people on our site asking us not only where to go, but what to do when we're there. And we want to give them the things that are worth their time and their money and make sure that they're spending both appropriately. And, yes, we can't travel right now, but eventually we will. What I actually have been working on kind of pretty consistent basis are these curated experiences with incredible businesses that we can then show, hey, when you're going to Mexico City or, LA or London or any of these amazing places, here's stuff that is unbelievably local, unbelievably interesting, and will create those stories that you want. So we're working with these businesses who are gunning to do something new, because right now they too are in lockdown. They're on pause. They want to make sure that when things return to normal, they do really great things. That's exactly what we want to do with them. And we're going to promote these hard, because these are incredible things you can do when you're traveling. So when people can travel again, we're going to give them things that they can do. It's going to be great.
There's one story, and you know which story. There's a story I want to chat about because we had a bit of a laugh about this backstage before we came on. The recovery from New York. You've got the PowerPoint slides at this point from the mayor and from Cuomo there, but what do you think that's going to be like? Because I got the impression that there's the social distancing and the bars and the restaurants. It's not really going to wash at first, especially when you've got a bit of chutzpah and you're not going to take any nonsense from people socially. How's that going to work in New York where you're naturally close together?
God, New Yorkers are a wonderful group, but you're absolutely right. They take zero guff. And if they want to do something, they're going to probably do it and be pretty loud about it. You look at some of these other states that have reopened recently. Let's take Texas and Ohio, which just reopened last weekend for bars and restaurants. And they are radically different states. And I say that with love, having lived actually in both of them, but radically different. But when they reopened, it was a nightmare. They gave all the power to business owners to allow them to do whatever social distancing measures they want. And of course, they did none. So you see all these photos out there on social media of bars that are packed, which would be bad on a good day. And this is nowhere near a good day. So when New York opens, there has to be restrictions and guidelines and things set up in place to make sure that business owners are operating in this appropriate way. Because right now we're hearing who knows how real they are, sort of legendary tales of these businesses holding underground supper clubs where they're inviting people in to actually have a normal drinking experience. And if the cops come, they have to tell them, hey, you're just here to pick up your food and leave. But they're actually holding events. And you're just like, oh my God, New York, you have to do better than this. So if they're going to reopen and they're not going to
We had that about 100 years ago in New York, didn't we?
Yes, we were quite famous for it.
Come on, look, okay.
And it worked okay then. It's going to work a lot worse now. So yeah, when New York reopens, they're going to have to do a better job than these other states who just are kind of being like, well, we'll see what happens. And what we're seeing is happening is awful, awful things. So it'll be interesting.
I'm looking forward to getting you back on at the end of the show for one last question, but I'm going to just line up Jared to join us in just a second. If you're watching, this is the live show from Travel Massive. You will find us streaming live on Facebook. Please like the stream so we can keep getting folks' attention to it. You can also comment and that'll come right back to us here. Tell us where you're watching from. Likewise, you'll be able to find this on YouTube streaming live, but don't forget you can catch it after the stream. We'll share a link to the broadcast to everybody that's registered. This was broadcast around the time that we had about 4.8 million diagnosed cases, where New York was the center of the American outbreak. And for that reason, we wanted to come together today to talk a little bit about New York. Our man in New York for Travel Massive is Tom and his fellow chapter leader, Jared Alster. Jared, thank you so much for joining us. Can you give me a sense of how New York has reacted from a business perspective? How has the travel business been hit locally, and how long do you think it'll be before we're back to normal?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for letting me be on. It's been the industry here has been really decimated. It's been now going on 3 months in our lockdown. I have personal friends and colleagues in the industry who are looking for second jobs because their normal place of business has been closed for so long. Wow. So I think in saying that, we are seeing some sort of green shoots ahead, although I think, as Alex said before, we're not quite there yet. As a city, statewide, we're slowly but surely getting there. But in the city and the surrounding areas, it's still pretty rough. I think the city is resilient, but is also very dependent upon travel. So everyone wants and everyone intends for there to be a resurgence and a recovery, but it has to be done in the right way.
Jared, you're based in Long Island today. A lot of your work will be in Manhattan, will be all over the city in Brooklyn as well. What's it like to have been, what's isolation like on Long Island? Can you give us a taste of that?
Sure. Yeah, so I haven't been to the city in 3 months, which is kind of crazy. I haven't seen my business partner, Tom, in 3 months. I haven't seen my sister and her husband who live in the city in 3 months. I haven't seen my colleagues in travel in 3 months. So it's been very different. And I'm I enjoy working from home, but I'm not one of those people who, works at Twitter where they're working from home for the rest of their life. That's not for me. I like to be out there. I love the buzz. I love just being around people. So for me, it's been an adjustment for sure. Thankfully we have a backyard, so our two kids are able to run around and let out their energy. So that's been a godsend, and it's been great to spend more time with family and be active and outdoors as the weather starts to change. But I'm definitely looking forward to a better day ahead, and a day when I can once again pack on a train with hundreds of my very close friends and go into the city.
I miss the commute, I must admit. There's all, I have a ritual. I miss the commute. You're based in New York there. It is one of our largest chapters. We established that you're leading, you're the largest chapter by a matter of 4 members there in New York, just over 3,800 members there. For me, that's a huge, we have about 700 here in Dublin. We think we're doing okay. We'd love to grow that more, but 3,800 is a huge number. What's the secret, Jared? And is it that there is just such a concentration of travel in New York there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think so. I've led the chapter here along with my co-chapter leaders for about 3 months now. So certainly, I've only been in the Travel Massive game as a leader for a few months, although I've been a member for many years. I think the diversity of the members we get here is a big reason why we're so massive and so broad. We have everything from PR reps to content creators to travel agents to tour operators and activity operators to agencies to travel technology. I think on the technology, it's been interesting for me as a tech guy myself and a co-founder. When I left New York to move out west about 9 years ago, there was no tech scene and certainly no travel tech scene in New York. And then coming back in 2017, there was this we really became this hotbed for all things tech. So I think that's added another element and allowed sort of founders and investors and everyone in the tech scene to also join our chapter. So it's been really great to watch the growth. I think obviously we have a lot of people here just in sheer numbers and volume. So that obviously will contribute to the overall size of the chapter. We also get people living here from all different regions, people who come here and live for a few months, they live for a few years. So I think everyone wants to be tapped into the industry, and Travel Massive certainly is a great way to do that.
Maybe that the timing wasn't as bad as, and I say that in jest, Alex. I know you're still on and you can hear me. But Culture Trip launched a product in March, just at the wrong moment. Also, Jared, it must be tough for you guys as well. You've also set up your own consultancy earlier this year, Wildebeest. Have you been impacted just in January? Have you been impacted by that since the outbreak?
Certainly impacted. So our timing was, in hindsight, a bit off, but what are you going to do? So we launched Wildebeest, which is a digital strategy and brand marketing agency focusing on the tourism industry. Back at the end of January, we had a great big old party here, really good reception, off to a fast start. And we were lucky enough to win some clients right away, and they were very loyal, and we're very fortunate to have smart, loyal clients. And we were able to retain a few of them through the crisis. Probably the most interesting bit is that we've actually won some new business during all of this, during our.
What's the secret to that? What's the secret to that? Is it because that people they're just more accessible by phone? Is it that you can close a deal faster? How is it that you manage that?
I think I think about this every day, Kevin, honestly. I mean, I think it's a mixture of a few things. I think it's one, just having a great network. But I think we're at a point now where we're 3 months on, and March, like a lot of us, was spent in crisis mode, just trying to plug the holes. And now as businesses start to think about the recovery in the future, and they've already made the necessary cuts that they've had to stay afloat and survive, I think they want to move on. And a lot of businesses are looking,
I'm just thinking about the psychology of the New Yorker, the resilience, there's a natural fight, a drive that I associate with a New Yorker, at least, or my stereotypical New York, the ones I've met. there's something bothering me here. We think of the recovery as having 50, whatever, 6, 5, I don't know how many phases before we're, normal. Like until you bottom out, until it's ready to start fighting again, will that not kind of short circuit the natural drive to get to recovery? If we're still, if we're still getting infected, if we're still spreading infection, if we still can't travel the way we used to, and the tourism business is still kind of in a spiral, there's nothing to fight starting from.
And I think my personal opinion and our opinion at Wildebeest is that it's not going to be a linear path. It's not like we get on this sort of plane and we start here and we end here. It's going to be like this, and it's going to be a bit bumpy, but we will get to that end. So the other day, yesterday, we published a piece that looked at the psychology of the recovery and the psychology of people and how they think and how fear is still a very real thing. And we looked at that through the lens of the industry and how people make that decision to travel, because we've all seen the reports and the surveys and the stats that say X number of people have the intent to travel. But intention and the best intentions is very, very different than actually clicking book now, getting on that airplane, going to the hotel, whatever it is. So that gap between intention and actuality and the practicality of actually traveling again is what we want to look at. And we think it's going to be a bumpy road. Not to say we won't get there, and not to say that there won't be some element of the public that travels immediately after they're able to. But for a lot of us, it's going to be just, I don't want to get on a plane until there's a vaccine.
There is a 2-track recovery. There'll be folks itching to just get on a plane because they're not being restricted from doing so anymore. And then you'll have folks that, for whatever reason, personal or family, or, maybe they're immunosuppressed, who knows, won't until it's absolutely safe to do so. And this isn't like what we'd normally jam the works for aviation in the past for fear. This is medical. This is new. We really are in a 2-track kind of recovery there, Jared. I mean, what's the feeling on that? I mean, is there, do we see a 6-year or a 10-year recovery because folks won't feel safe flying because of the fear of spreading a virus? What does it seem from your perspective? What's your data?
Probably a whole separate live show, I think. But no, I think it's a great question. Look, no one has the answers. The predictions are out there. Everyone reads the predictions. Certainly, I don't have the answer myself. My opinion is that it's going to be a multi-year process to claw back the business we've lost. I think one of the reasons why all of us in travel feel like this has been such a punch to our gut is because we fell from that top rung of our ladder. Before, in January, December, we were all flying high, every metric within almost every single sector.
It seems like we were ahead of the WTO's projections.
And then we fell from that top rung to the very, very bottom in a matter of days.
So you were telling me off stage, off mic, that you're part of the recovery for New York City. Talk just in 20 seconds about the coalition there, and what's the mood like among your peers?
Yeah, so Wildebeest joined the New York City Coalition for Hospitality and Tourism Recovery, which is an initiative led by NYC & Co., the city's CVB DMO. So we're members, along with another, I think, few hundred members at this point, that comprise of hospitality brands, agencies, city organizations, and they've taken this 3-pronged approach to planning the comeback for our industry in New York. So that includes marketing, advocacy, and then some element of public awareness. So it's really the early days, and we'll see how that goes. But I think NYC & Co. has taken the reins on that effort, and obviously they need to do it along with input from the local government and the state government as they're able to. But they're trying to comprise this sort of coalition to move things forward.
One last question, Jared, before we bring on Kelley here. What'll be your Looking back, 3 years ahead, what do you think your memories of this lockdown will be?
Um, that's a
Apart
great
from being
question.
locked in, I mean, what will be the one thing that you think has changed your perspective, or has changed your outlook, or has changed
Yeah,
behavior a little bit? What's new for you now, and what do you look back on as a memory?
I think just living a different lifestyle, slowing down. Especially here in New York, everyone seems to be always on the go, and all of us have now just had to slow things down. So I think it'll be interesting to see if we all return to that lifestyle. I also think about my kids who are on the younger side and what their memories will be, and if they'll even remember this at all in some cases. So I think, look, yeah, it's going to leave an existing stain for some people, but I think also there'll be some positive learnings that might come out of it.
Jared, listen, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for taking the reins for now, until 5 people in London overtake the stats for New York. Thank you for running one of our most successful chapters worldwide. And thank you for joining us, of course, on today's live show. If you are joining us for the first time, we are here with you until the top of the hour. I'm joined next by Kelley, Louise. We have John Matson coming up last. But if you are listening in, feel free to share a link to this recording afterwards. Make sure you spread the word about the live show. And if you have any questions that you'd like to share with us, live@travelmassive.com. We'll come right to us, and we'll try and include your feedback. In the meantime, like, share as much as you can on Facebook and on YouTube Live. Kelley, Louise, thank you so much for joining us. You're joining us. I don't know what part of New York you're in. I forgot to ask. Whereabouts are you?
I am also in Brooklyn, but a world away from Alex up in Williamsburg.
How big is Brooklyn, Kelley? If I can understand the size of Berlin, how big is it?
Brooklyn is big. So New York City is the United States' only megacity. We have 8.6 million residents, I believe. If you separated Brooklyn away from Manhattan and just made it in all of those and made it its own borough, it would actually be the second largest city in the United States.
Okay, wow. That's okay. I need to press you on this for a little bit. If you had to drive, or if you had to meet halfway to where Alex is based, how long a drive is that, or how long a subway journey is that to get to him?
It's like a 30-minute drive. To take the subway, I would actually have to hop back into Manhattan and then go over, which is urban sprawl. But
suffice to say that Brooklyn is a big place. That's that's the message there. What has been your lockdown experience? What's changed in your own day-to-day activity there?
I have been self-quarantining for 2+ months now, working from home as much as possible. I for my full-time role, I do marketing for clients in the travel and sustainability space. Definitely have seen drop off there in terms of the workload. But I've been fortunate enough to keep working on some exciting projects at the same time. And then Impact Travel Alliance is my passion project, and it's given me an opportunity to have a little bit more space and time to invest some love into that.
Impact is in the sustainable travel realm. Can you, and if you were watching our South Africa episode of the live show, I nearly had a complete meltdown about the definition of sustainability live on air. But I think, Kelley, for the first time, you gave me a decent description of what sustainable travel meant in real terms backstage. Can you repeat that? Because I thought it was brilliant.
I will not be able to repeat it exactly. But in its simplest definition, it's just travel that has a positive impact on local communities and our environment. So the easiest way to think about it is just remembering people, planet, and profit. It's a holistic approach with triple bottom line business. It can be applied to any travel style, any budget, any travel style, budget, or destination. And ultimately just keeping in mind how your actions are impacting that local community and the environment at the same time.
Does sustainability necessarily mean less travel overall, less bodies visiting Venice or the Galapagos or wherever. Is that what it essentially means, or is it just being sensible when you get there and arriving at the right time? Can you maybe debunk that a little bit for me?
Yeah, so that's it's a complicated question because there's just so many different nuances to it.
It is loaded. I'm sorry about that, but just because when we hear it, like we live on a rock, we need planes, and when we hear sustainable in Ireland, it means fly less. It's. I find that very tough to digest personally, because who decides who flies? We should all whatever. But does sustainable travel mean we travel less, or less people enjoy visiting these destinations?
So there's a lot of different opinions on this, but the way that we break it down at Impact Travel Alliance is that we're simply celebrating innovation within the industry. And so if I were to sit here on my soapbox and say, don't travel, it's not sustainable whenever you get on a plane or you take a cruise somewhere or you do all of these different things, nobody's going to listen to you. You might get a small percentage of the population listening, but that messaging really isn't effective. But if I can sit here and I can tell you about all of these advancements in renewable fuel energy, or how this tourism project is promoting and boosting the local economy in a destination, when you pair that message with here's how you have a really epic, badass, immersive experience in a destination, and you can do all of these things like empowering local communities and protecting our environment through that, then that is a lot more powerful than telling someone to stop traveling. That goes hand in hand with driving industry innovation. But I think that shifting of the narrative around sustainability and thinking of it more as here's a way for us to have better travel experiences for locals and travelers alike, then that consumer demand can then drive industry innovation.
You've got a small revolution on your hands there, Kelley, from the sound of things. So instead of being preachy, because that is a communications perspective, it can be preachy, but you're celebrating the positive aspects rather than calling people out on maybe the negative aspects. So there's something quite interesting there. Look, you started this in New York, but it has grown. You said you've grown to 25 chapters. Can you talk a little bit about the growth there in ITA?
Yes. So we launched in New York City. We have organically, through the power of social media and word of mouth, grown to more than 25 local chapters around the world. To date, since our launch, at least as of our count at the end of last year, we had hosted more than 300 events. And that's all to the testament of that growth is tied to the passion of our volunteers worldwide. We're completely unfunded and run by a team of volunteers who are passionate about building a better travel industry.
It's one of your projects, Kelley, and one of the things that cropped up just while I was preparing was Via Hero. Do you want to give me a quick 20 seconds on that as well? It's one of your projects, and I found it fascinating.
Yes. So the other hat that I wear, I do travel marketing, and with Via Hero, it's a startup that connects you with a local to help plan your trip. And the project that we were talking about in particular was this pivot that we made in the midst of the coronavirus and everything that's happening. We're continuing to iterate on it right now, but we ideated it and launched it in about 2 weeks, and it is a product where you spend $20. We match you with a local based off of your travel style, and then they build a customized bucket list for you filled with recommendations for a future trip, plus ideas on how to experience the joy of travel at home, whether that is through a recipe, a virtual tour, a book to read, some way that you have that connection with another culture, even when you're stuck on your couch.
It's been widely shared. It was Rod Cuthbert that stands out in my ears as having said it the last time I heard it. But sometimes travel planning is as much of the joy as the travel itself can be. And it seems that you've captured something there that, it mightn't be the trip, it mightn't be as good as the booking, but it's at least getting the planning element of it absolutely kind of productized there. The one thing that stood out for me, though, was that this is revenue generating. You charge people for it. Can I ask about the stats on that? Because that's interesting.
So the way that it's set up is that our locals, the locals who plan your trips, are called heroes. And we are committed to supporting the local heroes who we're working with. They earn a 70% commission of every trip booked through Via Hero. So whether that is for the traditional guidebook or for the bucket list, they're earning a commission off of that. And that's basically Via Hero's business model. It's similar to a gig economy. We're not working with tour operators or agents per se. Not that we could if someone wanted to, but it's just an opportunity for a local to make additional revenue by doing something that they love and sharing insight on their hometown.
I love the fact that, it sounds like a quality product. It sounds like you've done something that is highly valuable, that in previous travel startups, people would have just done that for free and hoped for a transaction down the road. But instead, you've almost made it better by putting the dollar on it. Does the travel business have a problem capturing value for hard work like that, of the planner, of the hero in your language, instead of just hoping that they'll pick up some commission on a booking for something else downstream? Do we have a problem? Do we have a problem billing for the value that we're adding?
Well, ultimately, tourism is a revenue driver for local economies, and I think thinking of it more especially now, we're so aware of how much the travel industry has been impacted, and being able to offer someone, I've freelanced for so long, and so it's like time is money, and that's valuable. And so thinking of it kind of from that space, if you are getting a better travel experience, it's fun, you're able to message the local, you can get tips on what to do, what to avoid, that are personalized for you as an individual. In many ways, that's a travel hack. You're not having to look at an outdated guidebook that was printed who knows when, or outdated
or you're
reviews.
chasing stars on a review site or something else.
You have that local connection, and that's cool too, just to have a friend who's helping you out in the city that you're going to be visiting. And at the same time, you're able to support them by doing something that they love.
So a buddy of mine in a very well-known Berlin startup sent me an email once to save me from the dining options in Berlin. It seems like everybody has this bucket list of places to eat in, and the one for Berlin is absolutely essential because there's great food. It's just impossible to find. There is some dynamite stuff there. So that local connection, I think, is what makes the magic of travel. So Kelley, long may that last. What do you think 2.0 here looks like? How do you think we can take advantage as an industry of the reopening to steer us in a better direction and a more healthy direction as a business?
We're at a crossroads right now. We've mentioned it in this talk already. The tourism industry has just been growing. And for far too long, we've been focused on counting growth as opposed to, we're looking at quantity over quality. And so now we have this opportunity to be able to reset and say, what travel industry do we want when tourism resumes? And one option there, and it's a likely option that this could happen. We have to fight for the alternative, but one option is going back to normal. And that's one where over-tourism and climate change plague headlines about tourism. And the other option is building a more sustainable and impactful industry. And the tools and resources are there to do that. And there's consumer demand to be able to do that, especially in terms of being able to build loyalty among our travelers. And that option is so much better for our industry on so many levels. It means we're not going to have generic travel experiences where everyone's doing the exact same thing. We're able to focus on a regenerative economy where we're not killing our planet because of the way that these systems and structures are in place. there's just wins on so many levels for travelers, for businesses, and for everyone involved.
I have one more serious question and one less serious question for you afterwards, but so there's a systemic opportunity that we can leverage to do something different, to come out of this, even just with a steer towards something fresher. I'm not saying that leadership is the example or the thing to hope for on this, but Kelley, who are the leaders at the moment that you think are setting the best example here? Or is there any for sustainability or for this new, more relaxed or more appropriate travel business?
There's a lot of players who are doing great things. I think the problem within the industry is that they're all operating in silos, and opening up more doors to not only work together, but also talk to people who don't care about sustainable tourism and say, this is why it's a good business decision. This is why it's better travel experiences, and really expanding the conversation past the group that has been preaching to the choir for the past 40 plus years.
Any names, anybody that's standing out at all? Anybody you'd like to celebrate?
For a brand or for who's doing something good?
Either as a CEO or a brand, yeah.
I mean, within the industry organizations, GSTC is doing a great job at accreditation programs. There's also the UNWTO, CREST, plenty of industry organizations that are working to build a more sustainable industry. And I would say within the framework of what it looks like on the logistics and the nitty-gritty side, those are some of the top players. And in terms of brands, the ones that I'm really excited about right now are ones that are either focused on really great storytelling and marketing campaigns, ones that make it easy for travelers to understand what a sustainable option is. Skyscanner launched a Greener Choices label. So when you're looking at flights, you don't have to think about which one is the most eco-friendly. They've already done all of the math for you, and they have that in an algorithm, and it's just a little green icon that appears.
It actually stood out for me as well. I loved seeing that when they launched it. Kelley, on a more personal note, what's the most Brooklyn thing you can do that you can't do at the moment? What are you looking forward to getting back to?
It's funny. I think what I love about New York is like the feeling that you get sometimes when you're here. And I think it's different for every person, but it could be looking at the skyline. It could be sitting in a cab and feeling the wind against you. It's all of these like different little moments that it is tough to grasp when you are quarantined in your tiny apartment for 2 months on end.
Do you get out to do any shopping? Do you get out to do a run or anything like that in the meantime?
I go out a couple of times a week. It's definitely something that you think about doing more. But it's not quite the same to go on a walk versus going out and meeting up with your friends for brunch, or even being able to escape the city. I love going upstate, and it's a quick train ride away, and it feels like it's a lifetime away right now.
Well, look, let's. I'm looking. I can't say the word because my dog is actually sitting right here next to me. But I'm really looking forward for a walk along the shore with her as soon as I'm able to get back out again. Kelley, we'll have you back on towards the end of the show. But in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us here on the live show. If you are joining us, this is the 12th time we've come together as the Travel Massive community to talk a little bit about how the COVID-19 crisis has been affecting us. We did not know, of course, we did not know how this was going to unfold. We started out with a show on the 6th of March. We've kept it going every week ever since. And look, we're talking about New York today. It's the epicenter of the crisis in the US. But one of the casualties that came up along the way was what happened to John Matson in Voyager HQ. And we have John joining us today to talk a little bit about that. John, I have to warn our listeners that you are in a room holding with all kinds of stuff in the background, including a guitar. I'd like to just put everybody to rest. In spite of what's happening here on the chat window next to me, you won't be playing it because we haven't got the right microphone, if I understand correctly, to get you to play along. John, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, I kind of gave it away with the opening there. I know you through Voyager. This was the first kind of co-working, the first kind of open network for getting travel and travel technology companies connected with bigger brands. And you guys were doing a phenomenal job based in New York. What happened?
Well, I appreciate all of that. And certainly we had a great experience and great time building that. But, you know, this whole experience really hit us at an unfortunate timing. Voyager had been built on the needs of founders. You know, it was really focused on what we found to be the most two common needs, and it was, you know, access to capital and access to enterprise. And we had focused a lot on the enterprise in the kind of onset of the company. And, you know, as you alluded to, we had a co-working and event space in New York City. We had a network that spanned over 2,000 companies around the world, and we were running events at that point in 6 cities. And so, you know, we had also had an annual conference. And if you just look at the through line of all of that,
everything was looking great. It was going up. It was getting better and better. And
what happened essentially is, you know, we relied very heavily on events and the innovation budgets of enterprise travel brands, and those don't survive a pandemic the same way. We had only
we did have Anne Sederhall on a very strong opinion about what airlines should be spending money on, and innovation should be the last thing to go, in her opinion. But it was, John, that was it. Is there a natural fear of to innovate as an airline or to the larger enterprise travel brands? I think they do, but do you think is that what your feeling was working with them?
That there was a fear? I'm sorry, I missed
a fear of innovation, a fear of new, a fear of working with startups among those companies?
I wouldn't claim it to be a fear. You know, and it wasn't just airlines we were working with. You know, we had partners like Virtuoso and Amadeus, and certainly some of them all came forward and were trying to also support in this crisis, but they had to keep their houses in order. And you know, at the end of the day, it's how they maintain the whole organization. But I don't think it was an intrinsic fear. I think like the priorities for a travel company and mainly the transportation companies we were working with has always been safety. And when something like this has far-reaching applications to how they look to a customer when it comes to safety, it just crumbles the foundation of the company, right? So if that's their core value and innovation and risk is like the opposite of that, that's where the conflict always really was. And what we started to see in the more recent future was a real accessibility to how we could isolate some of those ideas and tests and pilots, and that's what we had just pivoted to. We had been making an innovation lab to help our enterprise customers kind of mitigate risk, to test more rapidly, and to kind of get out of their own way in some ways. And but the challenge is that we had just pivoted into that at like the 3 months prior to this whole situation, and that was at the same time we were already moving out of our co-working space to focus on that initiative. And so it just hit us at a really interesting cash flow position, which is, really unfortunate. But I should say there's been an incredible silver lining, which is to say that the network and the community has really banded together. Jared brought it up earlier that, travel tech in New York is not going away. And I certainly think the travel community in New York is not going away. And the travel community at global scale certainly has an opportunity, as Kelley put it, to reshape a lot of what innovation means for this new customer. Like, what is the reality is that this is the time that travel brands need to be listening to their customers. You know, we've gone through the cost cutting, we've gone through the we're in it together, and we've gone through a lot of the same sentiment. We're either seeing people who are putting out the same offer they had before, or somebody who's still in that we're in it together phase. It's now what needs can you meet in this emerging market that weren't there before. And
like this will all normalize in 5 to 10 years. We'll be back, hopefully, to the exact same kind of volumes. Everything will return to normal. We'll be back to, and that's the great hope, or at least the great reality. Mm-hmm. How that happens is the opportunity, because it's not all going to come back exactly the same way, and it'll scale back up again. There'll be sectors, there'll be segments that'll respond faster. There'll be types of users that'll react better, and that's where the real opportunity is. But John, hang on a second. When you are talking about that, and yes, I agree with you, and I'm only going to agree with you on yes, you need to innovate, but is Voyager completely gone now, or is there still kind of a virtual element of it left? Where are you guys at this stage? Is it doors shut, goodbye, sayonara, or are you still kind of a virtual online community?
That's a great question. I mean, it was founded as a digital community. The Slack is still there, and truthfully, you know, the owner is my co-founder and partner, Sam Jane. You know, he still has these things parked, and you know, there is a hope that we can revisit this in some way, and certainly we're open to hearing people's ideas and how to approach that. And but you know, he also runs the second largest flight OTA in the U.S. It has, you know, we all have priorities here and that are important, and people that rely on those priorities. So it's just a matter of time, and I think that for sure, I don't think any travel startup should feel discouraged by this. I think if anything, it just goes to show you can emerge with something new.
You had a very light touch, even in what you're describing there, about how to bring guys with ideas to guys that want ideas, that don't really know how to talk to one another. Yeah. And the model that I've seen emerge, and it happens at various levels and to different success. Sometimes the branded incubator run by an outsourced company for the airline. I don't know if it's that exact model that they're using at Hangar 51, but that kind of thing. For British Airways, IAG. Each airline has their own kind of incubator type thing going. Do we need permission to like and structure like that to come together with airlines, or what is the right model, do you think?
Well, you know, what you're really getting there is a structured procurement. So the challenge with working with, well, let's say an airline in particular, is that procurement takes a very, very long time. In the industry, it's, you know, an average sales cycle of somewhere between 12 months to 18 months. And that number has really held true. One of my personal, I'd say internal KPIs with Voyager was always to lower that number. I wanted that to be like a 6-month window, which is already long, but, you know, the reason that those accelerators can be so useful, and one of the reasons that we were creating programs for the enterprise partners that we had, was to try to accelerate that process. And it's not just about vendor procurement, it's about true fit. You know, again, if you think about the priorities of an airline, how many things they have to go through with their customers, the very, very important data that they're working with, they have to protect their customers in a very unique way. And so you can't just like farm off, you know, a data set and be like, here's your test market the same way. And so I think those accelerator programs provide a lot of value, and especially for first-time travel founders. Say you're a technologist and you've built a couple companies.
They haven't seen the script yet. They don't know
it's
how
like,
it's
what is going on?
Procurement?
Like,
what?
I love travel. They go into it. They think it's just as simple as the other industry. Every industry has a challenge, but certainly the nuances of getting over those hurdles and integrating is just a special beast. And so I think there's a ton of value to that. And we always did things on an opt-in basis. The thing that's unfortunate that was great about Voyager is we were able to break down a little bit of those barriers just by an ethos of inclusiveness, and so we were able to kind of get around some of that with, hey, you both should come to this event. And so that's a little bit more difficult to be casual about in a Zoom call.
No, that's the thing. Like when you really study the essence of innovation theory and you get into all the academic papers and you do all the studies, they all come down to the human level. You put people into a room together and you let magic happen. There's only so much. Yes, you can, structure a couple of things like card games or dinner party or whatever, as if you were dating or trying to introduce two people. But it's the same kind of thing. It's at a human level. They have to connect first. And if you don't, you've got a long road ahead. You got to at least enjoy being in the same room as someone. John, I admit this is a tough interview for me because it's too soon. I'm still mourning the passing, hopefully not forever, of Voyager. But listen, what are you up to now? What's JM doing?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It was certainly a difficult beginning of this pandemic, but I was saying the whole time, and I still believe this. There's tons of bright spots and opportunities out of what's going on right now, and I'm excited to say I joined up with a stealth travel and smart cities startup. Now,
do we get to hear about this, or do we have to hear the word stealth a few times from you? Can we get some basics, or is today the big coming out for the startup?
I mean, I won't. I do have to say it's a stealth company, but certainly, what we're doing can be talked about a little bit, some color. They had been working on a smart cities application for about a year and had done research up to that for about 4 years. An amazing team working on this, and they actually were Voyager members, and they approached me about this model. And basically, what we're creating right now is a contextually aware smart notification system that helps people better understand their surroundings along the journey. And this could be applied very specifically to the travel journey. And if you think about that as in concept and what's going on with COVID, people need, I think Jared might have said this earlier, which is that people need more confidence to be able to travel again. Having the intent to travel is so different than booking. And really the layer in between that is information. Information and knowledge builds confidence. And so I'm really excited because this company is really focused on that part of the aspect that really helps the industry recover as fast as possible. And the reason I was brought in is that we want to bring the best features of all the startups and enterprise partners that I had been working with to the travelers during this time of concern. And that is really exciting for me. I get to engage with the community in a more commercial aspect rather than as kind of a support system aspect. And of course, I'm still very much there to support anybody who wants to reach out and kind of chat. But right now we're doing a beta test this summer that is with a public-private entity, a major venue in New York. And while the tourism numbers are down, it's actually a great time for us to be able to do some of that initial testing. And what we're looking for is basically those who are dealing with those emerging concerns. If you're a startup, let's say like a luggage provider, and I know a bunch of these guys, these people, and but if you have a new way of providing that in like a clean, impactful way, what we're basically doing is a communication tool to get that in the hands of customers. And let's say like an insurance provider. I think that space, by the way, has like so much shaking up that's about to happen because everyone's pissed. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. But
we're about 10 years behind. No, that's wrong. We're about 5 years behind Asian markets on this one. We still use the box. There's the all-knowing box that tells us what we need to know, and we just jump into the box and it gives it back, and it doesn't matter which brand of box you use, the all-knowing search box tells us what we need to know. And it's kind of a frustrating thing because it's search and search until you get to the answer. It's not bad, but imagine discovery happening a different way. And I think that's what you're really tapping into. Imagine, and it's not creepy. You don't have to have total knowledge about somebody to do that. You just have to give information in a better structure. The box could do that, by the way. But, you've got a better way of figuring something out. And that's what we're all looking for. we don't want to be creeped out, and we want to work with brands that we trust. And it's something that we discovered. It's like once you put the customer and the actual provider together, they love each other.
Yeah,
they really do. It's all the stuff that happens before it happens. It's torture. No matter how much you hate Uber, you're still going to love your driver. That kind of thing. So there's always that final connection is what I think makes the magic. So power to you, John. Power to you. Look, I have one last question before we go to everybody again. What's the one thing you miss about being outside? And what part of New York are you in at the moment? What's the one thing you miss about being outside and being a New Yorker?
Yeah. Oh man, a lot. We've been locked down. We're in Brooklyn, in like the Park Slope area. And
come on, we could have at least had somebody from Manhattan or fake it, but no, it's Brooklyn. Everybody's on Long Island somewhere. Okay.
I know, right? Yeah. I'm happy that I'm not in Manhattan based on density alone.
Why? But... Sorry, is it different there? Is it?
Well, I made one trip in out of necessity to the office, and it's not like bad. I mean, the streets are certainly wider than in Brooklyn. But that was at like right as things were happening. So it looked fully apocalyptic. Like there's no one around. At this point, everyone's just walking about without masks here and there. I mean, you just spot these people and you're like, please just put on a mask, like for my sake. But the thing I'd miss is not the wherewithal of New Yorkers to say, F you, I'm not going to wear my mask, because I also enjoy that in a different way, is the serendipity. I mean, I think, Kelley put it a good way.
Kelley touched on this, yeah.
Yeah, like I miss being able to host or be at a happy hour or be at that restaurant and just bump into somebody that I didn't know, or that I did know and just had no idea that they were going to be in New York. Like the odds of that happened so consistently for me. I've been in New York for 8 years, and so often that I missed that opportunity. I had to be so intentional about seeing everybody, and that's great. But it's that chance appearance that really I miss.
I miss running between events. It just struck me. You got an event, you got another event, and you have to go, and you have to be at something. No, I just switch tabs. That is not fun at all. And my email response time has gone right down, because it's always when I'm in transit that I catch up. I'm on a plane, I do a whole lot of email, and
my commute was so important to my organization, and then
isn't it funny how the whole glue comes together? But I think Kelley really nailed it there. There is something more than the sum of its parts. It's not just the drinks or the networking or the meetings or the skedaddling off to something else. It is the buzz that you get into when you're on the street, and it is that just kind of New York experience. It's the Dublin experience for me, down around Grogan's at 5:00 on a Friday. Oh, I miss that so much. My pub at the office. It's just I
miss Sid Gold request room. A shout out to Sid Gold. We used to do piano karaoke like after parties after the happy hour, and Voyager was a block away. It was the best place. Please support Sid Gold if you're doing the donation stuff right now. They have such a special thing going on.
We're bringing in everybody else. Maybe the others will recognize Sid Gold. I'll certainly put it at the back of my mind for.
I don't know. Some of you guys have joined me at Sid Gold.
I don't know Sid, or I don't remember Sid, I should say.
Really?
I don't know.
Well, maybe you had too much fun at Sid Gold then.
The question that's come in from the producers is, look, and not to, I don't as a host try to dwell on the negative, but let's look at the positive side of it. New York's got an awful hit, as we know. There's a lot of recovery to do. We've talked a little bit about that today. It's been the hardest hit. Will it be the strongest in recovery? Will it come out even stronger? Is New York definitely the center of travel for startups in the future? I'll start with yourself, Jared.
Yeah, I mean, I think the short answer is yes to everything. I mean, it's and I'm biased here because I was basically raised in New York, and I've lived here for the longest of any city I've ever lived in. So I think, yeah, certainly New York will recover. It'll bounce back. It'll bounce back different, but it will bounce back stronger. I do think that the hype about everyone leaving Manhattan, if this screen right here we're all looking at is any indication, no one lives in Manhattan anymore. There's still 8 million people. So I think that the city will certainly change. I'm not doubting that, but I think that life will go back to normal at some point. It might be a year, it might be 2 years. New York is resilient. We bounced back before. The city is too eclectic and it's too pivotal to the world, I think, not to. And I think for travel, certainly, I mean, everyone wants to be in New York. It's still going to be the city that we all remember, and that won't change.
Alex, is there anything to add to that? Because I think Jared covered an awful lot of bases there. Maybe is there something that we can learn from New York about the crisis, even?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, when things do start to return to normal, how eager people are going to be wanting it to go exactly back to normal. Humans sort of crave normalcy, and I think there's going to be this initial rush to be like, all right, everything is exactly the same as it was before. And of course, nothing is the same as it was before. I just read an interesting article about how bathrooms are going to keep us from actually getting back into normal, which you don't even think about. But of course, that's so interesting. Everything is going to change. But we're going to adapt that change into kind of this New York spirit. And yeah, I absolutely think it's going to be better and stronger, and we will be more thoughtful about everything we do. So in the initial run, it's going to be really hard, and it's going to be very frustrating to a lot of people. And then after that, it will shift to something new and interesting, and I do believe stronger. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Fair play to you. You have completely bamboozled me. The great recovery will be how we use bathrooms. I will be thinking about that. That will haunt me until I crack that one. I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
That's it. Everything on down is going to have to shift, and we are not ready at this point for that shift. But we will be. We'll get there.
Kelley, we talked a little bit about this when we were chatting as well. We talked about the shape of the recovery. What is the new strength that we'll find in New Yorkers at the end of this, do you think?
Even to tie that back into your previous question as well, the inspirational answer to that, and the one that I think that we all know, is that New Yorkers are resilient and New Yorkers are strong, and that will come out of this. But the flip side of that, and when thinking about how we're going to come out of it, is also just understanding that so many of the issues that we're seeing were issues before. And those have just been exacerbated by the coronavirus. And when you look at things like the areas that have been the hardest hit by the coronavirus, those are also the ones with the highest rate of poverty. And so there's these direct correlations to these deep issues within New York that we need to really thoughtfully examine and think about how we're going to rebuild a stronger city and a stronger tourism industry here. And maybe pulling that back into thinking more about tourism and what our responsibility is as travel professionals is, again, thinking about quality over quantity, thinking about dispersing tourism dollars. Far too many people come to New York City and all they want to do is go to Times Square. And that's great if you want to do it, but I can guarantee
there's some stuff to do on the way there, maybe. And I think there's time to discover that,
If you want to do it, there's ways to do it. Urban Adventures actually has a great tour of Times Square. You can do it sustainably. So there's opportunities there to do that. But at the same time, anything that you find on a top 10 list is not going to be your favorite, most memorable experience in the city. And even looking at this panel, each of us would have a different recommendation for the one must-do thing that you had to do. So just thinking about ways to go beyond what traditional tourism has looked like and build a stronger industry from there.
Last word to you, John. Now you can pick up on anything that the others have said at this point, but there's maybe just to spice things up a little bit. Do you think the recovery in New York will create a spike in startups, in new company formation, and in innovation like that? And maybe is there a way that New Yorkers can do it to make the guys in LA and Silicon Valley more jealous?
I certainly think, no matter how you look at it, that this is a time that will breed innovation. There's going to be new companies here and new ways of doing it that have never existed before, and certainly the industry as a whole should be trying to be open to working with those new ideas, because what happened last time was basically everyone got shook up and was like, how do we deal with this? Now I think that there's a real opportunity in that public procurement is simpler. I mean, as a startup, you could compete on RFPs that never existed before and you would never even talk about with them before, and there's just a ton of new opportunity. And really, I think if a startup was looking to make a big impact, New York is an amazing place to do it because it was so vastly affected. And the initiative from Cuomo and general public officials within New York City have really opened up a lot of doors. And being a part of that story and being a part of that solution is pretty much a once in a lifetime opportunity for many in our generation. And so seizing that is essential. And I just don't think that SF or anyone else has the same sentiment how difficult this has been in this particular market. So
I think the opportunity really favors the agile here. You can be the sort of person that worries who's moved my cheese, or you can be the sort of person to seize the opportunity. John, I love that as a parting thought. I'd like to thank you all for joining us on our special live show here. We Love New York, live show number 12 today. Thank you so much for joining us. There's one last thing that I have to say before we go. This has been 12 weeks that we've been putting this together. This is my 10th live show. We've had different topics such as the industry in quarantine, lockdown, shockwave, being grounded as airlines, checking in as hotels. We've covered almost every aspect of the travel industry, and we've taken two very different, I think, perspectives from both South Africa as well as from New York. We've reached somewhere in the region of 34,000 people on Facebook in this time as we've produced these shows. Our typical reach has been in the thousands total. I'm just so proud of being part of this. Like I said, this has been 12 weeks that we've been working on this. Behind the scenes, what you don't see is an amazing production crew. You see four corners here, but behind the scenes in the green room and working hard all week is a lady called Maria Stoyanova, based in Bulgaria. People that know Travel Massive a little bit will know her as the Travel Massive chapter leader there, but she's the producer of this show, helped, of course, by the great founder of Travel Massive, Ian Cumming. We've done, like I said, 12 episodes now, and it's time for us to take a short break. We're going to come back with a second season of this in just a couple of weeks, but we thought we've put together one hell of a platform here to help come together as a community. And it's something that's spiraled into the chapters. I know we've done something like this in Dublin. We did a show and tell where people have brought their little creations that they've been working on. People have written songs. People have developed new kinds of travel product in Dublin. We've done it all online thanks to the platform that the guys in Travel Massive have put together. And I've seen more and more events go online like this. But from a production perspective, this is the end of our first season and the beginning of the production of the second season of the live show. If you'd like to be part of this, and if you've any suggestions on what we could do together and anything that you'd like to see happen, or if you think you'd be a really, really compelling speaker, and you've seen the standard here today, we've had some really, really deep and thoughtful, and we've had some very, very lighthearted, but always very, very insightful comments from our four contributors. Thank you all so much. But join us, reach out to us at live@travelmassive.com. That's how you reach us. And that'll hit the mailboxes of our producer, Maria Stoyanova and Ian Cumming. But that's how we are going to start thinking about our next season. That starts today. This has been the end of one hell of a journey. For me, I will be chasing the dragon on this kind of experience. I've had so much fun interviewing some of the smartest people in the travel industry. I swear to God, I've had so much fun doing this. I've learned so much about the business itself, as well as had so much inspiration from it. I hope you have too. If you've enjoyed any of these, my favorite, of course, is Grounded. I'm kind of an aviation geek. Check back to hear Anne Sederhall and Ian Timothy Dunn Timothy O'Neill Dunn, to get their perspective on when air travel, for example, will get back up and running. That was episode 7 of the live show. Share one of these episodes with somebody you know. Maybe there's something that they might be able to enjoy from it, or tune into the podcast as soon as they go live. They're coming very, very, very soon. This has been one hell of a journey, guys. And for everybody in the Travel Massive community that's helped us build this, Jules, I'd like to call you out for making the lighting here work extremely well, and everybody else that makes me, Maria, and Ian look good. Thank you so much for being part of something massive. Take care.